everybody. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Mary McKee. I am the head of content publishing operations at Findmypast. You may have seen some of my presentations before, so thanks for returning today. So we are going to get started in a few seconds here. We have some people joining. Feel free to say hello. Let me know where you're coming in from. I am presenting from my home in Northern Ireland. If you've heard one of my presentations before, I'm going to apologize in advance in case my dog starts barking. That happens from time to time. That's what happens when you're working from home. We also have some neighbors here doing some yard work as well. So I'm hoping that you're not hearing any of those noises. So we've got some people coming in here. Hi, Sally. Hey, Flo from Oregon, a fellow American. Hello. And hi from Essex. Georgia's in Essex. And we have Heather in Edinburgh. Oh, we have people from all over the world joining us today. So that's incredible. And so we have, first time, we are also streaming on the British Newspaper Archive Facebook page as well. So welcome to anybody that is joining us on that side. We are having a very special presentation today, and we wanted to shout about it on all of our platforms. So on our comments today, we have Niall and Rose are both helping us, and they are with our content team and help with social media. So if you have any questions about newspapers, please feel free to jump in and just ask away. And if I can, I will try and get to most of your questions throughout this presentation. So we've got a lot of people here today. So thanks. Let's get started. So today's presentation is about the new free-to-view newspapers. So just today, this morning, we have launched over 1 million free newspapers on both the British Newspaper Archive and Findmypast. So that's right, you can view and explore and search and download over 1 million pages of newspapers. So today, in the next 30-40 minutes, I want to take you through the background as to why we've decided to do this, where these newspapers came from, and look at how you search and how you find these papers. And then also we'll dig in and take a look at some of the fantastic titles that are available. So get started. Over 1 million free pages. So this whole idea came as part of our extension of our partnership with the British Library. So we've had an amazing partnership with the British Library for over 10 years, and that is where the British Newspaper Archive was built from. And that's where we started this huge project into digitizing newspapers. And so this year, last year, we extended that partnership for another 10, 15 years that we're going to be working with the British Library and continuously digitizing their massive newspaper collection. So part of this extension was we wanted to find a way to even to give even more access to newspaper material and newspaper research to anybody around the world. So we settled on the idea that we're going to release, starting now, we have 1 million free pages, and then over the next 4 years, we have millions more pages coming. So every year, we will be releasing more free newspaper content for the next 4 years. So in today's release, we have newspapers spanning from 1720 to 1880, and there's over 150 titles in this. So jumping in, I want to show you how to search the newspapers. So first time doing a video in one of my presentations, so hopefully this all works out well. And I can show you how to search. So starting with Findmypast, many of you are familiar with your dashboard. You go up to the search option, and then you can see newspapers and periodicals. If you select that, you can see there at the top, it's pre-selected there for British newspapers. You can change your filters by year ranges, but now we have a new filter called Access Type, and that allows you to select whether you want the free to view pages or subscription access. So in this example here, I've searched for my surname, McKee, and then I select the free to view, and I can see there's 190 articles available to me with that surname. So I can select the article that I want to view. And for me, the first thing I always do when I search newspapers and I want to dig deeper is I zoom into that page. I get it full screen. I want to look at the entire page right away. I don't want to look just at the article first. I always look at the full page to see what else is happening. Because when I first selected that, it was zoomed in very close to that name, but I wanted to zoom out so that way I could see the full article and understand why there was a list of names in this newspaper title. And then in case it wasn't clear enough in that video, here's just a bit of a close-up there that you can see the newspaper filter. Again, it's going to be underneath the year ranges, and you can select either free to view or subscription access. And the numbers there on the side just tell you how many how many articles are available to view. So when you put in your search, so in this example here, I searched for the word Ireland, and I can see that in the free to view newspapers, there's over 700,000 articles that I can read to read about the subject that I put in. And because we have special guests from the British Newspaper Archive today, we have also created a video for how to search it on that site. So this is the BNA homepage, and hopefully this video starts. There we go. Okay, so from the BNA homepage, I usually use the keyword search option just right there at the beginning. So here I've put in the word potteries, and the BNA has a lot of search filters. So on the left-hand side, you can see if you scroll all the way down, and then under access type again, you can select free to view, and it will immediately change your search results to all of the free newspapers that are available. Then you go ahead and select which one you want to check out. And I've selected this one. So this comes from Cobit's Weekly Political Register. And this particular article is from 1815. And the Weekly Political Registers was created famously by a hugely influential 19th century radical, William Cobert. And it was quite a vehicle for his kind of ideas and his opinions about the time. So similar to how I look at newspapers on Findmypast, I do the same thing over in BNA. I immediately jump into the full page, zoom in, zoom out, take a look at everything that's going on. I also use that refresh button that's in that top left corner. It's a little circle, and that actually stops highlighting the article. Sometimes I don't really like having the article highlighted. I'd rather, see the entire page, but it's completely up to you, and it's your preference on how you want to view the items. But it does also mean if you use that refresh button, it clears it in case you wanted to take a snip of an article. It means you don't have the highlighted text or anything like that. You can just see the image by itself. In this video here, you can see that I'm zooming in on a particular area. I do have to apologize. I was creating this video for you, and then I went down my own little rabbit hole, as you do whenever you're looking at newspapers, and got completely distracted by the fact that the random article that I picked was about Pittsburgh, and it mentioned Philadelphia, which is where I'm from, Philadelphia. So I did get slightly distracted there for about 10 seconds and just started reading the article, forgetting, actually, this is supposed to be an informational video for you guys and not a deep dive for me. But it happens way too often to all of us that you go into the newspapers and you're looking for one thing and you end up just exploring everything else which is going on. So on Findmypast and British Newspaper Archive, that is how you're going to find these incredible million pages of free content. And on BNA, you can see here, I've just highlighted again where you find the search filter. So when you're looking at your search results, if you scroll down on the left-hand side, you can see all the filters where you can change for the year and for the location, and then you can also see access type. I will say you will also find this search feature in the advanced search. So that is on the if you're on the home page, you can find the button for advanced search, or even within your search results, if you're up at the top where the search bar is, you'll see advanced search. And within that, you can also limit it or change it to free to view pages. In the advanced search, you can also change the year ranges you're looking at, or you can also add in to search specifically when newspapers were added to the site. So not just the date of the newspaper, but when we've added new material, you can look at that as well. So we're getting some comments in here. Linda uses both BNA and Findmypast, which is great. You do have to remember, so all the newspapers that are available on the British Newspaper Archive are completely available under your Findmypast subscription. It's the exact same newspaper material on both platforms. Just some people choose to use one over the other because of their own particular research interest. And we also have more comments in here talking about the digitization process. And yes, the digitization process on these are manual. So we use a feature called OCR, optimal character recognition. And it is a completely automated process. So these are not manually transcribed newspapers. So it does lead from time to time machine errors, and we don't actually get the words exactly right, especially for that early material where we used to have, where you have the letter S looks like an F. So sometimes that can get missed as well. But the newspapers on the site, we have been adding them for over 10 years. So every year we are constantly improving our systems, and we are continuously going back through and seeing how we can improve older materials. So hopefully over the next couple of years, you'll see even more improvements on this site while we keep looking at that and seeing how we can improve your experience in searching the newspapers. So guys, thanks for sending in comments. Please keep sending them in. Feeling the newspaper love. We absolutely love newspapers here for sure. So next, I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about the collections that we've made for free and where those came from. So we have our partnership with the British Library. Like I said, we've had a partnership for over 11 years at this point. And so during that time, we have helped and on different projects that they have completed themselves. So one of the early digitization projects was the British Library's 19th century newspapers. And this was their first major digitization program. We weren't a part of doing this digitization work, but the amazing thing about this program, the 19th century newspapers were the first newspapers that we had that built the British Newspaper Archive. This is what we launched with when we first launched the site. And the project was funded by the Joint Information Systems Committee, also known as JISC sometimes, and it was all to digitize newspapers from the 19th century. So within our collection, you'll find the Caledonia Mercury, the Brighton Patriot, the Chartist. All of these titles came from this particular project. Then we have another project with British Library. So the library has been working on digitizing newspapers that are in poor or unfit condition, and particularly newspapers that are rare, and as well as besides newspapers, they are also digitizing rare books and manuscripts. But with our partnership, we focus on helping the library with their digitizing the newspapers for Heritage Made Digital. And this is an ongoing project. We're still up to today. We are still participating in this project and regularly work with the library on this. And through this project, we have been able to publish the Star, the Statesman, the British Luminary, and the Jewish Record. Another ongoing project that we are participating in at the moment is called Living with Machines. And this is a joint project between the British Library and the Alan Turing Institute. And it's been a landmark project to digitize a selection of titles from the UK. And these newspapers are being used in a study of Britain's industrial age. And they're also using AI tools in order to undertake new kinds of historical inquiry. I absolutely recommend looking up Living with Machines. It's really neat, the stuff that they're doing with the newspapers. So we've been helping by providing the OCR, all of the language output that we create when we digitize newspapers. And they're using AI technology to dig into all of the text within the newspapers of millions and millions of pages of newspapers that they're working with. And through this project, we have been able to publish the Potteries Examiner, British Miner and General Newsman, and the Blackpool Herald as well. And finally, another project that we have been working with alongside with the library is the Endangered Archives program. So this year was the first time that we participated in this program, and we helped to digitize the Barbados Mercury. The Endangered Archives program is a project that facilitates the digitization of archives from across the world where they are in danger or physical deterioration. And we have, as I said, again and again, we're doing this in partnership with the British Library. So Luke McKernan, the lead curator of news and moving images over there at the British Library, has said, is super excited about these million free pages that we have launched today, and has stated that our partnership in terms of the British Library, our partnership with Findmypast has enabled us to transform access to the incredibly diverse collection of newspapers in our care, offering historical insight into the lives of ordinary people from communities across the British Isles and beyond. Today, we are very excited to make 1 million pages available online, which our audiences can enjoy for free wherever they are in the world. So you can see just how excited we are to be able to bring these to everyone across the world. I do want to just add in that when you are searching for the free records, because this popped up today, because we've just launched today, you do have to register with the site. So that's with Findmypast or the British Newspaper Archive. So the access to this material is completely free, but you do have to be a registered member. So you don't have to pay or anything. You just have to put in, start an account with us with a username and a new password. And then after that, you can view all of the newspaper pages. Just checking in on the comments here, rolling in a lot of love for the newspapers. And are there any plans to improve the search facility on Findmypast? It isn't as flexible as the BNA. And you're right. So the BNA search platform is different from Findmypast. It was built differently because we have a lot more people on BNA with a broader range of interest, where Findmypast, we wanted to really focus on first name and last name to see about first name and last name, because we know that everybody, most of our users on Findmypast are really interested in family history. So you're always targeting that name and finding a name in the newspapers. But there are definite plans in the works to help to improve the search function on Findmypast. And it is something that we're looking at over the next couple of years. So thank you for sending that question in. Okay, so we're going to dig into what is actually available in this 1 million pages. So taking a closer look at the newspaper titles that are available and what type of material you'll be able to find. So beginning with some of our international titles, I mentioned just before, so we worked with the Endangered Archives program and we digitized the Barbados Mercury. Recently, it was featured in The Guardian for its importance of revealing the lives of enslaved people in Barbados. And along with that, we also have published the Royal Gazette of Jamaica. Well, when it was first published in 1779, it debuted as the Jamaica Mercury, but then later became the Royal Gazette of Jamaica. And both of these titles were focused primarily were written primarily for British people living in that area, living in Barbados or living in Jamaica. But it does help to reveal what it was like for people that were living in for the natives at that time. And unfortunately, in these kind of titles, we can find advertisements for runaway enslaved people with a description, it horribly explains, whether the person was branded. But we do hope that by publishing this material and having it freely accessible, it will really enhance, research or enhance, historical inquiry into people from that area and into the lives of enslaved people. Next we have, the earliest title we have is the Caledonia Mercury. So first published in 1720. It was published 3 days a week in Edinburgh. But it was a rival or a competitor of the Edinburgh Evening Current. And the Caledonia Mercury covered mostly news of local affairs, but it did cover foreign intelligence as well. But one of the criticisms of the title was that their foreign news was often published like months after an event happened. So that is just a little search tip as well. If you're looking at a newspaper and you're looking for a specific event, don't just search on the day that the event occurred. Do a couple of searches, maybe weeks or even at times months after it happened. Sometimes the news just took a long time to be printed, and especially if it was international news, it took a while to actually get to the news desk for it to go out for publication. So do search around the time of the event. So with the Caledonia Mercury, you'll see as well that rival political fractions would have used the Mercury and then the Edinburgh Current as kind of as ways to voice their different opinions on politics of the day related to legislation. So it was really an area for political debate as well. I really love the newspaper because it is one of our earliest titles. The image quality of it is excellent as well. So it's really easy to search and to find material through that. Then the latest title that we have in this collection of free pages is the Examiner. So we have that available up until 1881 when the Examiner ended. It was first published in 1808 and then it closed in 1881. For the first 50 years, it was the leading intellectual journal expounding radical principles, but from 1865, it repeatedly changed hands and political allegiance, resulting in a rapid decline in readership and loss of purpose. Within the newspaper, you can see consistently they published works of leading writers of the day, so you'll find work within the Examiner by Lord Byron, John Keats, William Hazlitt as well, which is a great thing if you are interested in literature. The newspapers are an amazing resource because the local newspapers, the daily newspapers, would often publish the works of these amazing writers that we know and talk about today. Some of my favorite newspapers are always the illustrated ones. I could just sit for hours. Today, fortunately, I was allowed to because I was putting together this presentation, but just sit for a while and just look at all of these really incredible illustrations. I love the detail of them. So one of the illustrated titles that we have in our collection is the Illustrated Sporting News and Theatrical and Musical Review. It is definitely a long title. This front page image that you can see here is an image of all of the prize dogs at the Holborn show. If you're interested to know, the first prize right at the very top there. And the Illustrated Sporting News and Theatrical and Musical Review was launched in 1862. Its opening issue announced through this really amazing graphic that you can see here on the left-hand side, all of the different types of sports that they plan to cover through this. So you have hunting, cricket, billiards, pedestrianism, which essentially was competitive walking. I did have to Google that myself. In the States, we would call it speed walking. And that was covered in this newspaper. Along with the sports, you would also get, of course, a mixture of reviews of theater performances, as well as dramatics too. So it's quite a mixed bag here, but it is very heavy focused on sports. So you would find reports of sporting events, you'd have fixtures, results listed, and then even background articles about personalities in the sporting world or histories of specific sports. And the chief distinguishing feature, of course, are the illustrations. It's handsome wood gravings. Many of these were derived from photographs, conjured up the character and the excitement of the Victorian sport. Such was the popularity of the illustrations that they were available for sale separately, often ending up on the walls of public houses. There were also engravings of theatrical performances, while the sports illustrations could include images of notable sports figures from the past, going back to the 18th century. Another title we have is the Colored News. So this is the another free-to-view illustrated title in a glorious Technicolor colored news. It's the UK's first ever newspaper to contain colored illustrations and available now on the archive for you to view. And it was first published in 1855, but unfortunately this specific title only lasted a few months. But the illustrations are absolutely gorgeous and such rich detail in them as well. So that's what I love about looking at the newspapers on Findmypast or on the British Newspaper Archive, is that you can, really expand the image and zoom in extremely close to the to see the detail of these illustrations. So comments coming through here, just saying this is an amazing resource and they've had amazing discoveries. We have somebody mentioned that they had a discovery, an ant who had a brain operation when a carpenter was present. Oh my, made the front page of the Daily Mirror. Well, that is an incredible thing to find. Tragic accidents to maybe winning a local award or being part of a local committee. So the topics of the newspapers do widely range, but I do want to mention just one more illustrated title that we have, which is the Pictorial Times. And this was started around the 1840s. So it's news of literature, fine arts, and drama. And again, another one of these beautiful illustrated newspapers. So that illustration there is the Napoleon Museum. You can see people going around. You can also see some of the works of art that was available. In this illustration here, we have the Norwood Station and Engine House. And again, it just is a real snapshot of the times. It gives you a real feel for how busy it was and what it would feel like to be there. I mean, I looked at this and you could almost kind of hear the noise and the bustle around the railway station. We have a really interesting mix of political titles that are available. So to start, we have the Chartist. The Chartist movement was the first mass movement driven by the working classes. It grew following the failure of the 1832 Reform Act to extend the vote beyond those owning property. So the Chartist, the newspaper, was a weekly 4-page London newspaper, and it was owned and published by James Thomson, who's devoted to this movement. And in opposition to many of the other Chartist newspapers that were prevalent at the time, Thomson had a real point to make sure that the newspaper cost was as low as possible. So many of the other newspapers would have sold for roughly about 6 pence, but Thomson's paper sold for much less in order to, make sure that as many people as possible could purchase the newspaper. And this fact he prominently proclaimed on the front page of the very first issue. I don't know if because of the cost of the newspaper, but it did not last very long. It had a very short existence and unfortunately only lasted for 5 months. Another title you can explore is the British Emancipator. So this was created by the Central Negro Emancipation Committee. So it was a strong anti-slavery newspaper which fought for the abolition of the system of apprenticeship, which was put into place after slavery was abolished in the British colonies. Within the new free pages, you'll also find the Poor Man's Guardian, which was published from 1831 to 1835. It was the most successful and influential of the radical unstamped newspapers of the early 1830s. So because the newspaper was unstamped, it was actually an illegal newspaper. It gave remarks and observations about matters of the state and the church. Its first issue explained that it wanted to excite hatred and contempt of the government and constitution, of the tyranny of this country as by law established. I found in an issue from 1831 in August, it talks about that the coronation was coming up, and the editor stated that a coronation is nothing more, as far as we can see, than a splendid farce, which of course is exhibited in the country's expense, at the country's expense. An opportunity for the chief of the aristocracy and his wife and their servants and the things with human pretensions, self-elected lords and legislators to wear fine clothes, beguiled with gold and jewelry, beguiled with gold and silver, and all at the public expense. He also called it a childish extravagance while starvation is in the land. So it gives you an idea of the tone of the newspaper, where they were coming from for the Poor Man's Guardian. And then finally, we also have The Sun, which was first published in 1801 and lasted until 1871. And this is completely different, the opposite end of the Poor Man's Guardian. This was a daily evening newspaper founded by writer John Harrod, with the support of Prime Minister William Pitt and his government. The newspaper during its early days was subsidized by the government and advocated a very pro-government and a very anti-French revolutionary stance. It achieved circulation of around 4,000 copies a day, but that was partly because hundreds of copies were being distributed for free by the government because it was very pro-government. To celebrate the Queen Victoria's coronation on the 28th of June, 1838, The Sun produced a groundbreaking commemorative issue, which had the front page entirely printed in gold typeface with a large medallion engraving of the Queen at the center. So that's the image that you can see there, except at the time, the whole image would have been gold leaf. The issue was so popular that it was estimated to have sold 250,000 copies. Incredible. So you can see in just these four titles the range of political history that you'll find, and that you'll get various opinions from taking down the government to a very pro-government stance. So next we have some occupational titles. So we have, and these particularly came about with that work that I mentioned before with Living with Machines. So they're looking really closely at Britain's Industrial Revolution. So the titles that we're working on with the Living with Machines project are very focused on that kind of industry and workers' newspapers. So we have here the Tamworth's Miners Examiner and the Working Men's Journal, which was from 1873 to 1876. So this told you news of miners, the national associations, as well as the local associations. It would also give you updates of like any accidents or fatal accidents that happened on site. You'll find legislation related to mining, news related to legislation about the mining industry in particular, of course. Then we have the Potteries Examiner. So a journal of local and general intelligence devoted to the interests of labor. It's the official organ of the potters, miners, ironworkers, etc. This was published in Stoke-on-Trent, which is the world capital of ceramics, which is why it's called the Potteries Examiner. And then we have the final title there is The Beehive, which was first published in 1861. It advocated for strike action and particularly supported the new model trade unions of that time. It became the official journal of the London Trades Council. But unfortunately, it had very low circulation, which means that the title did not last very long and went out of publication by 1878. It was discontinued at that time. It had a strong focus on the friendly societies or working societies. At that time, friendly societies provided financial and social support for specific affiliations. So it could be a religious affiliation, but in this context, definitely with the trade unions. And it was at a time before modern insurance. So they would have helped with kind of financial help in a similar way. And you'll find industrial news from all over within the Beehive. I do want to take a closer look here. I love the, this was the first issue of the Beehive and the headline image. And I just think it's absolutely beautiful. Again, going back to my obsession over just the illustrations that you can find in newspapers and the engravings. But I think it's really amazing to see this. I do wish you would have this more often in even newspapers today, but it's really beautiful, showing like a beehive at the center and a cornucopia, and then different types of trades around the words and the central beehive as well. And if you take a look inside the title, like I said, you can find news from all over. So on the left-hand side, we have news from the working men of Sheffield, and it was a gathering of the working men's reading rooms on Norfolk Street. And I love the details that you can find about these organizations, and just see that see even just who's part of the organization or the association, and even the little details of what they discussed. So in this circumstance, they gathered for tea, and they were celebrating the success of the Northern cause, but also celebrating the success of the election of Abraham Lincoln in America. And so I always find this interesting. If you can find an ancestor who is a part of some kind of an organization or association, there's so much that you can find out about that association. And even if like your ancestor's name isn't mentioned, it's really great to just follow up on what's happening in the association, because that is part of your ancestor's life. Even though, you know, they might not be named in the newspaper, you can see what those weekly meetings were about. And then today I found this incredible, kind of awful story from the Potteries Examiner about the exportation of Irish factory girls to Belgium. So this was in 1872, and a group of girls that were working in a local factory on a Friday, they were taken by their boss and exported over to Belgium and the parents had no idea that this was going to happen. So I did try to follow through, and there is a court case where the Mr. Madier was taken to court for the unlawful transport of these young girls, 15 and 16 years old. And they were supposed to be taken to Belgium to work in a spinning factory there. They were working in a spinning factory in Belfast as doffers, so they were taken to Belgium. But as the court case reveals further, and it actually is discussed in Parliament as well, that they believe that it was more of nefarious reasons as to why the women were being transported. So it's basically an example of human trafficking. And yeah, it was quite remarkable to just come across that today while I was digging into these newspapers to find more incredible content for you, and came across this very unfortunate story. So within these, moving on from that unfortunate story, within these 1 million free pages, we also have some national titles. So we have the Morning Herald, which was founded in 1780. It's a national daily newspaper that for a number of years actually rivaled the Times in its importance. And then secondly, we have the News, which was published in London from 1801, and this was a weekly publication. It included foreign intelligence, review of politics, international trade, and reports from Parliament as well. It did include excerpts from the London Gazette, so the London Gazette would have reported on appointments or bankruptcies. And we can also find some special interest titles. So we have the Jewish Record, which was founded in 1868. And then you can see there kind of the motto of the newspaper coming from Proverbs was, "The lip of truth will stand firm forever." And the Jewish Record was published to reflect a more traditional view of Judaism, held principally by less assimilated members of the community. It was a weekly penny newspaper. And it was in direct competition with the Jewish Chronicle, which was already in publication at the time. And the Jewish Chronicle reflected the interests of the Anglo-Jewish establishment and the rising Jewish middle class. So the Jewish Record made a point within its first issue to say that it also wanted to make sure that the cost of the Jewish Record was as low as possible, so that more people could access the information. So it had a lower cost, so to be more widely spread and widely accessible. Another special interest title that we have is the Ladies' Own. It is one of the earliest newspapers, for the exclusively for a female audience. And it had news of the day, but suitable for the woman reader. So in its first issue, it explained that we shall make you acquainted with all the leading events of the day without fatiguing or disgusting you with lengthy disquisitions. We can tell you that a battle has been won or lost without shocking your sensibilities by its painful details. We can inform you that a minister has resigned and yet omit the long, dull speeches which preceded his doing so. So it's definitely an early woman's newspaper, but yeah, with more of a simplistic view on the news of the day. And I just want to dive in here, take a look at some of your comments coming through to see. Someone here is, we have a French person who didn't know about the Napoleon Museum. So definitely take a look at was it the Colored News? I think that one came out of. So take a closer look at that newspaper. And I don't see many questions coming through, just a lot of love for the newspapers. Sharon just saying hello. Hello, Sharon. Thanks. So with that kind of wraps up today's presentation, today's Find My Past at Home. Wanted to bring you a clear idea of what you're going to find in these 1 million newspaper pages. So I do hope that you jump on now. Go ahead, jump on to Find My Past or British Newspaper Archive. Like I said, you do have to register. You don't have to pay for a subscription, but you have to register. And then you can start searching. Use that search filter on the left-hand side that shows free to view. And then you can dive into some of these incredible titles. I mean, these are just a few that I mentioned today. Like I said, today we've launched 150 titles, including the Pictorial Times. We already talked about that. The Midland Examiner and Times, the British Luminary, the Weekly Chronicle, and the list just continues to go on. Newspapers are a key primary source, and they offer such a unique window into history. You can really understand and hear the opinions and the tone of the time to understand a lot more about the period that your ancestor lived in. And if you want to know more about the release that came out today, you can go to the blog on the British Newspaper Archive, or you can go to the blog on Find My Past. Both will explain to you how to search the records, what more you can find. There'll be even more detail about some of the titles than I have described today. And then also, I can't leave without mentioning our Facebook forum. So please join the Find My Past Facebook forum, a lovely community of people there. If you ever hit a brick wall or you want to get to know more, or you need some help with your own research, there's amazing people in the forum there to help you. And just looking at comments, and now Annie and Sally were fortunately having a little afternoon nap and have caught on late, but luckily this is recorded. You'll be able to find this again on the YouTube channel and check it out if you want to go in to see more. We have a question here from Elizabeth. What is the timeline for future releases? So the next release of free pages to our newspaper collection won't be until next year, likely I'll say early in the year. We don't have a defined date just yet. We are, now that we've gotten through this initial launch, we're going to start working with the library to start looking through what other material we have specifically from those projects first, but what other popular material we have that we could possibly make free for you. And we have another comment here by Audrey Collins. Hi, Audrey. That she's fascinated by the ads on the front page of local newspapers. I do love those ads. I definitely got distracted by a good few of those today when I was putting this together. One was for a hair product called Whiskers, which I found really interesting. And Audrey says not to, don't search by name, go to a paper for a place you're interested in and read a few issues. And I definitely recommend that. You can always search for your ancestor's name, of course, and particularly if you thought that they were mentioned in the newspaper for a specific reason, but always put in the place name of where your ancestor came from. You would be amazed by how much information you can find, especially even if your ancestor is from, you know, the smallest village or hamlet. Put it in and you will find an amazing history unearthed there. So again, thank you everybody for joining today. I can see that I didn't get to all of the questions and comments, but I will take a look today and try and get back to most of you. And hopefully now you are all signing into Findmypast or signing into the British Newspaper Archive and start searching and start exploring these incredible titles. Thank you. Bye.